Hi everyone, welcome to Sales in Minutes. I'm Astrid, and in this show we invite sales professionals to share their best hands-on tips and step-by-step strategies on everyday sales challenges. Each episode is about 10 to 15 minutes and are packed with ideas that you can start using right away. So we're back again with Monty Robins, Commercial Account Manager at G2. If you missed the last episode, Monty shared some great insights to learning how to fail in sales. And he spends the last couple of 7 years in sales, so he has a lot of great experience to share. And in this episode, we're diving into the topic, how to sell to buyers who already know everything. So Monty, please walk us through how the buying journey has changed in the last few years.
Yeah, thank you, Astrid, and thanks for having me back on. Buying journey, it's a very interesting thing. The topic right now is shifting hugely. Within the world, we've seen huge changes with the likes of ChatGPT, Gemini, Perplexity, etc., being very heavily adopted. And it's been the fastest pace of change we've seen in any technology adoption. When G2 did our survey, we do a B2B buyer survey. We did it in March. 29% of buyers were starting their research there in ChatGPT. And like when we ran that research again in August, it was 50%. So we saw a 71% increase in adoption. And what this means is when we're talking to people as sellers, they are almost definitely more clued up than they've ever been. And before this stage, a year or two ago, we're saying buyers were spending 70% of their evaluation before they'd talk to a seller. So when you're having a conversation with a salesperson now, you can almost guarantee that buyer knows a lot about your space and what you're doing, because typically the behavioral traits we see is they'll do that research before they come to you. So in the immediate instinct, we will have a conversation with people and we kind of have to work on the basis that they know a fair bit. They've done their research, they're clued up, they probably know who else they could talk to. And your job is then very different now to how it would have been certainly 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And the focus is like, how do we help them buy in a really supportive manner, I think. And that's when we look at the role of a seller, that's where I think we end up being. I think a lot of our jobs will be the entry level stuff will get taken up as these things move forward, and we need to think about how do we make the buying experience a really positive one for our buyers rather than something that can be a little bit more difficult.
Yeah. And how do you manage to, like, when you know you're going to meet a stakeholder that's done a lot of research in your area, how do you handle that first off in the first like discovery call or whatever?
I think the thing that's important is to get a bit of a sense check of where they're at in their journey. So maybe acknowledge the fact that they've probably done a bit of research already and understand why are they now having a conversation with us. Like, what more do they need? Is it because our pricing isn't out on the website and they want to make a decision around that, and maybe one of our competitors is? Or is it because they're going, I've done a lot of research, but I'm not entirely clear on what I need? And that's then when it's our job to start helping them understand a little bit more of our market, where our solution fits, maybe where some of the competitors do, but also understanding what they're trying to achieve is probably the most important thing. And if we can do that, I used to do that when I was selling bikes in bike shops. It's like, well, what type of riding do you want to do? And that's a very easy way to think about it. I always think is like, I want to help you get to where you want to be, but if I don't know where you want to go, I can't actually help with that process. And thinking about it from a very consultative type way is how you win buyers and help them, in my experience at least, get a better experience of a sale from us.
Yeah. And I also feel like, or at least for me, being very like respectful for their research they've done when you're meeting me at my company or whatever it is, but still try to, in a respectful way, challenge. Because like if you do a great discovery on what their needs or where the value sits from the first beginning, then you have a lot of power to like challenge the customer. Okay, you mentioned XYZ in a discovery call. How do you feel like these options fill that kind of needs? Or have you thought about this? You mentioned this thing in the discovery call that was very important for you. have you asked the other competitors that you research for how this works for you? So try to be like more consultative, I think, is a key to doing it when they've done the research. Do you agree?
Yeah, yeah, completely. And I think that's one of those things that's really interesting is when you start shifting from talking about just your solution to talking about the customer's problem and how does this solve for that? That's where, if we're in early, we have a better opportunity to influence someone's decision criteria. And if you're thinking about how you help someone make a decision that rolls towards your solution, that's then where you can start asking questions about, well, given, and this is something I do, given you want to be visible to B2B businesses that are researching within these LLMs, how do you see Capterra, for example, stacking up in those rankings when you're looking at citations? And it's like, okay, actually, they don't show up in the same way. So whilst they are a competitor of ours, they don't fix the same problem. And that's the thing that I always think is interesting is understanding the problem someone wants to fix and then making sure that they're evaluating based around that rather than something they create, which might be cost or it might be something that's how easy it is to work with. That might turn them away from your solution versus being like, actually, that might not fix you and get you where you want to be. We need you to be you want to ride on the road. We want to sell you a road bike. You don't need to buy a mountain bike that helps you go off-road. That's the way I always think about it.
Yeah. And customer that's done a lot of research before, they tend to have a lot of assumptions of how your product works because they think they have everything clear in the research process. So what kind of questions do you ask the prospect to help uncover whether the assumption is correct or if it's incorrect?
Yeah, this is one we get all the time. Certainly when I did new business for the first 4 years at G2. I just switched into the account manager role. But people roll in always just assuming we're a review site. So it's like, I know this review site. Sometimes marketing managers like my boss told me I need to fix this. Sometimes people like I use it at the old company. We're really, really well known for that. And the way I always break this down is I love an iceberg analogy of because our brand, so it's like this top layer, the surface layer of the review site, really small part of everything we do. So whilst I'm happy to speak to that, I'd love to understand a bit more about what it is you're doing in your world and your business away from G2. So then I can make a recommendation about how some of the other things we have might also fit into your world and things you're looking at.
And do you have like a good way of challenge the wrong assumptions without derailing the conversation?
It's a really tough balance to get right, that one. I'm typically and all of my colleagues are told this, quite happy to challenge someone on their perspective. But I think if you do that, you need to come up with like something that validates it. And a lot of that comes from knowing a bit more about the customer's business. So I think if you've done your research and you roll into a call and you've done a ChatGPT prompt just asking for like, help me understand the challenge of the business, and then you can actually ask and be like, okay, I hear you're saying that, but what I've seen is actually it looks like you're hiring a load of salespeople in the US, and our buyer intent data would be really good to help you understand some of those bits. So that's why I'm asking this question. Justifying that a little bit is really important. But then if someone's got a misconception, I think it's an old Sandler rule of like 3 reverses to the truth. So asking them questions around it and like how they reach that conclusion is a really important piece. To be like, oh, well, actually, no, I just want to collect reviews. And you go, okay, like, well, help me understand why you think reviews are going to help fix this problem. And that's where it's really important. And if you've got a really closed-minded buyer, it can be very friction creating. But I also think in a lot of those instances, those deals typically don't materialize into opportunities, like they don't sign. It's very rare. I remember I had one call in the first, this is one of the most painful experiences at G2, but I had a call with a customer 9 months in, and she didn't want to do discovery. She just wanted to buy. It was 2021, like the world of tech. It was all amazing. And I started asking her a lot of questions. She's quite resistant to it. I've really pissed her off. And I ended up, after this call, we watched it back with my team, and the team were like, why don't you just send a contract and like just get the deal done, do it on email and like pass it across. Very new business, sell it and forget it mindset.
Yeah.
it's the only clawback I've ever had at G2. This is the only time someone didn't pay, and it's because they weren't like signed up, and then it was completely wrong versus what their expectations were. And I think that's a prime example of where actually like our job is to make sure customers understand what they're getting versus what their preconceptions might be based on working with a competitor or another provider, where that experience is like, I give them money, I get to the top of the list, versus this time it's like you've got to collect reviews. If you don't have customers, you can't get leads and all those things. So yeah, that's where I think it's really important for us to feel confident taking that challenge, because if someone's not going to maybe be open to those things, chances are we're very unlikely to get them on board.
Yeah, yeah. And last time we spoke, you talked about the purple cow concept. Please tell us more about that. I think it's very interesting.
Purple cow concept. This comes from my onboarding at Gartner a really long time ago, but it's always stuck with me. It's an image where, yeah, exactly. It stuck with me because it's like the whole thing is like the purple cow in a field of black and white cows is the one you pay attention to and one you look at. Now, when that refers to prospecting, it's about how do you stand out from all of the other emails that your decision maker is getting, because we know there's a lot of hungry salespeople and a lot of AI created content now that may not be as well created or crafted as something you can do. And what I think is really important here is you need to do some research around your POC, something specific to them, and find a way to then incorporate that so they start paying attention to you. And then we don't just stop at one point. It's about how do I do something that's a little bit different? So what can I do? Maybe that's actually I'm going to follow a good process, do calls, emails, etc. But then it's like, if they haven't seen and you think you've done a good message, got good reason to get in touch with them, that's then when something like tagging them on LinkedIn in a post, that can get you a response from a C-level at a big company, because they go, no one does that. That's a ballsy move. And that's like, I've had that work a couple of times where you do that, you tag them, and then you get an email in response to your email being like, fair enough, right, let's chat. But I think if you see something about them, you can talk about how your solution can help solve that problem, and you get in front of them enough times, then normally you're in a good spot to kind of stand out. And that's what I mean about that purple cow, is it's like the one that they're looking at in the field going, with all these other messages, this cow's, there's something about it.
Yeah. So you want to be the purple cow. That's like our main goal here.
Absolutely. Be the purple cow.
Yeah. Okay, great. So the key takeaway here from when the buyer's landscape is changing is to challenge the customer, be respectful, but also a bit more consultative, and also be the purple cow in your prospecting skills.
Exactly.
Thank you so much. That's all for this episode of Sales in Minutes. Thanks for listening, and thanks again, Monty, for joining us.
You're very welcome. Thank you very much, Astrid, for having me on.